Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Midweek Burn. I am your host, Evan Fields. We're here with news from Underground, and we got a lot to get to this week. But first, what's got me burning is respect no soliciting signs. If you're a delivery person and you work for a company that goes door to door and things like that, I understand that you've got a job to do. But right before I was about to start this recording, I had somebody come up and knock on the door. I think it was a window company or something. And I've got a dog with diabetes and he's blind. He's 10 years old. And, I don't need him running into shit. And there's a no soliciting sign up for a reason. So please respect the fucking no soliciting signs, people. They're there for a reason. Other than that, a bit of personal news to get to. I know you guys saw the post last week about heating the underground and the missus and I being worried about getting a new furnace and the costs that were incurred with that, and keeping up with our day-to-day lives and the mortgage and the utilities and car insurance and all that other stuff. It just wasn't going to work out, and things were starting to get cold, and we were like right above that barrier where you don't qualify for help, and we were outside of the range for like rural assistance programs and things like that. So we didn't know what to do. I was at my wit's end trying to figure out how we were going to get this done. So I just put something up on Substack last week, kind of a PSA, a public service announcement, I guess, that things were getting rough, and if anybody could donate or try to encourage like paid subscriptions. And there were, I think, 10 to 15 of you guys that got paid subscriptions, and there were a bunch of people that did yearly subscriptions, and that helps out a whole lot because after a couple days you're able to access those funds and get them transferred over to your bank account. And we saved that up and put everything, like every dollar from the subscriptions for the past week, towards the furnace. And other than that, we had some PayPal donations. There was Carol, Melina, Alexandra, Susan. You guys all made donations. And then there was Eric made an incredibly generous donation. A subscriber, my friend Dr. Eric from South Florida. And I can't thank you guys enough, because it was enough to where it covered a little over half of the furnace. And that way we were able to, like, once payday hit, we got it scheduled, we got it paid for, the parts were ordered and everything. And we're going to have heat next week. We've got some space heaters in place right now to keep things from, keep pipes from freezing, and kind of mitigate any existential crises that could happen with it starting to get cold here and stuff. Because right around Halloween, it usually starts to snow this time of year, and it's getting down below 32 during the night. Other than that, not too much to get to. Please check on people right now. I know that there's a lot going on. I fell victim to it this weekend, the pressures of everyday life and mental illness and things going on, and this fucked up regime not caring about veterans and the government shutdown affecting that. I believe it was on Saturday. It was Saturday or Sunday, one of the days this weekend. I was having a really rough time. It was before we had everything about the furnace figured out, and just, I don't know, loneliness, isolation. I don't even know what it was. I was thinking about Army stuff too. And with the government shutdown and with the cuts to veterans care that the Trump regime has made, you don't see it right away, and there's no numbers to prove it, because they're not doing studies on any of this about the number of veterans that are losing care and things like that. But you see it at the human level. You see it at my level, because the government shut down. That means there aren't as many people at work at the VA. They're stretched thin. People are working double shifts for no pay, trying to cover things and keep up with what veterans need through no fault of their own. I mean, it's Trump's fault and everything, but with that comes things like I've talked about in the past, them trying to bring people back to the VA for medicine after they've been seeing the same provider through community care. That happened with me, and you're struggling and fighting, and you're calling a call center that is understaffed because of the shutdown, and you're trying to get the referral taken care of and figure out why your referral got denied, why you're not getting the same continuity of care with the same people that you've been seeing for the past 6 years. And you're fighting and screaming with them. In the meantime, you're running out of medicine. You don't have an appointment. Therapy appointments are less readily available because people don't have their medicine and they're relying more on therapy. So I've gone from therapy every week to therapy every other week. And that puts a strain on things, you know, when you've got mental illness as a veteran and you've got anxiety and PTSD and depression and all this other stuff, and you're not getting, it's a delicate balance, because as long as I have that care and as long as I have those regular medicine appointments and regular therapy and I'm staying on top of things, then I do okay. I can function as a human being and I can, you know, get through the day-to-day things. But once those things sort of get out of whack and your cup gets a little bit too full, you're not able to handle the small little existential crises, I guess. And it causes big problems, and it causes suicidal thoughts and freakouts and hypervigilance. And I was not in a good place this weekend. Luckily, I do have a really good support system in place here. My parents are out here nearby in Colorado. My brother and his wife are here. My wife is here. So I had all of them, even though it was the weekend. I couldn't get in touch with anybody as far as like mental health care. I couldn't get in touch with a therapist. And, you know, I went over to my parents' house for a while because the missus, she had work and stuff, and they helped me work through things and made sure that, you know, I got to a stable place. And one thing that kind of put everything in perspective is I didn't even know, because I was so depressed and so drained and so exhausted by the end of that day, that I was dead to the world and sleeping. And Sharon had come home that night and she told me that there was an ambulance outside and everything next door, and she freaked out because she thought it was me. And I live in a community full of veterans and active duty and everything, and I'm not sure what happened. We still need to check on them. We haven't really seen the car outside much next door since that night. But I know he's a veteran too, and he's got his issues. I'm pretty sure that he's fully disabled and stays at home, and they've got kids. And it puts it in perspective that it's not just you, it's everybody. And I live in one of the largest active duty and veteran communities in the country, and that's scary to realize on such a large scale, and the kind of strain that puts on social services that are already stretched thin. You know, Trump has cut the veterans crisis line. There's wait times and untrained staff, and it's just not good. You see the degradation of society. I wrote about it in The Price of Seeing Clearly that I put out the other day. And like I said, you know, studying these things and seeing the big picture from a public administration and public policy standpoint, you see the whole thing. You see not only from your perspective, but you see it from the suicide prevention line people's perspective, because they're stretched thin. So how are they supposed to, you know, meet your needs that you're yelling and screaming for and begging for? How are they supposed to meet your needs? And then what does that do to their family when they get home? So you think of the whole thing, and you see what one policy decision and what these government cuts do to people's everyday lives and their ability to function and their family's ability to function. And it's a scary thing. And it doesn't get covered a lot on the corporate media. And I just wanted you guys to hear a personal story and kind of a first person account of how delicate it can be with veterans' health care and their mental health care, and with the government shutdown and cuts to government programs and cuts to federal employees, and what that does on a human level. It's scary, and I think they're pieces of shit for doing it. There's no other way around it. I wish more people would wake up to it. I wish more veterans weren't conservative. I wish more veterans weren't blind supporters of Republicans and MAGA, because they don't give a shit about us until they'll conveniently come out next year at the midterms when they need veteran support. And it's just disappointing. But we've got a lot to get to today. Bear with me here. I am working with the streaming program. I'm trying to get better at it and everything. So we're going to get through this together and share some screens and talk about some things. The first thing I wanted to talk about is I was watching Kyle Kalinski's show yesterday, and he was talking about Nick Fuentes. And I was thinking about how he called it vice signaling. It's like the opposite of virtue signaling. It's this thing on the right with incels and groypers, and he called it like a race to the bottom. We saw it in the Young Republicans group chat when they were talking about gas chambers and Nazis, and yeah, I'm a Nazi and I'm racist, and they thought it was cute, and they were kind of trying to one up each other. And he was talking about how Republicans, it's almost like it's a culture for them that who can say the most fucked up thing. And they've already gotten to podcasters like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and all them being able to say slurs like they wanted to. And it just gets worse and worse. And one of the things that we're seeing with after post Charlie Kirk being shot and killed, one of the things that we're seeing is the rise and mainstreaming of Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes is the leader of the Groypers that you might have heard about, in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk shooting. He was kind of a rival with Charlie Kirk that didn't think that he went far enough. So the way that I put it is Nick Fuentes is more of like a nativist versus like a nationalist. He's gotten a little bit more mainstream because he's called out the genocide in Gaza. He's called out the state of Israel and everything. But there's one thing that I don't want to conflate is I think that's the reason that he's gotten more support in the mainstream and why he's going on shows like Tucker Carlson. And I believe he was on Dave Smith's podcast recently. But he's a violent anti-Semite. So one thing that he's realized is if he cleans it up a little bit and he polishes it up, he's able to infiltrate these more mainstream media markets like Tucker Carlson, and he's able to get these points of view across, because this is a guy that still says the N-word. He's an incel, admittedly. He's an anti-Semite. He said things in the past like he admires Hitler. Hitler's funny, and how could you bake 6 million cookies? Just deeply, deeply disturbing comments and views on the Holocaust. And one thing, I don't think that these kids today are, I don't know, I go back and forth between they know and they fall victim to the tricks that Fuentes and people like that are playing. But I wanted to touch on the incel aspect of it, because a lot of young men, there's this loneliness epidemic talk and everything. And a lot of young men like Nick Fuentes, they hate women and they have views on women that, like, one of his things is women should shut the fuck up. And he's this little nerd. And he's got these ideas that because of that race to the bottom after Charlie Kirk died and he's being more mainstream, I'm worried about young men picking these things up and having these views on women. And I don't understand it because he I don't understand it because he hates women, but he has such strong opinions on women. He thinks that women shouldn't work. He thinks that women are whores and all this stuff. But this is a dude who's never had a relationship with a woman. He's never talked to a woman. So I don't understand with this loneliness epidemic. I don't understand how these are the people that young men are looking up to. I had the same fucking problems in high school as these little dorks did and everything. And I was a good looking jock and everything. I got made fun of. I got turned down. I got laughed at. I went through the same shit. The difference is you learn and you adapt and you grow and you learn how to talk to people and you learn how to respect girls and women and how to talk to them and be interested in the things that they're interested in. And surprise, that's what gets you laid, you fucking nerds. I remember when I was in high school, I thought I was an ignorant little kid and thought Sex in the City was the stupidest thing. But guess what? My girlfriend liked it in high school. You know what I mean? So, and then I found after watching it for a while that it was a pretty fucking good show. But Nick Fuentes doesn't know shit like that, and he's never going to tell these kids that, and they just get these violent thoughts about women and these ideas. And one of the things that I wanted to show you guys was the interview that he did with Tucker. It's really fucking weird. They went back and forth about each other being feds and shit, but here we go. Let's check it out real quick. This is what I don't get is this is an admitted incel and he's talking about a whole generation being sexually dysfunctional. You've never had sex with anybody, dude. How the fuck are you an expert on this? Who made you the moral authority on porn? How about we talk about parents watching what their kids are doing on their iPads and everything? A real woman masturbating and being with a woman are two totally different experiences. Okay, I guess my bigger point is that we have to teach kids and young men that this is not fucking true, dude. This is not true. I'm sure there are people that have issues with that. There's people that have issues with everything, but that's not the reality of how things go. There's not a whole legion of kids sitting around jerking off until they can't breathe anymore. The real way that you have a good life is you respect other people. You respect women, you talk to them, you learn their interests and their needs and their wants and their desires. And I don't know how we got to the point where these little fucking nerds are the people that are dictating what young men are doing, and that they should be good Christians and they should bottle all this shit up and not just be normal fucking teenagers. I don't get it. Um, I don't think there's a loneliness epidemic. I think that there's a fucking parenting epidemic. Who is raising these little shits where they're sitting in the basement watching people like Nick Fuentes and getting these kind of ideas? Why aren't there Gen X dads out there talking to their kids and teaching them how to respect people? Why aren't there Gen X dads at home respecting their wives and showing them how to be, showing their kids how to be good husbands and how to have successful and valuable relationships? And why aren't those fucking little punks figuring it out on their own? You know, obviously what you guys are doing isn't fucking working. You're not getting laid. You know, hating women isn't the answer. How about you look inward? How about you change what you're doing? I don't know. I don't understand the whole incel thing. It fucking drives me crazy because every guy goes through the same thing. We all go through rejection. We all go through humiliation. We all go through learning and growing and how to treat women better. And I still learn with my wife how to do things better and how to be there for her better. It's all part of it. And I promise you, if you're a young man and you're listening to this and you're watching this, you are going to be much happier if you put yourself out there and you have the rejection and you talk to women and you learn how to talk to them and you learn how to be nice and approach them the right way. You guys see ugly fucking people with hot girls all the time, dude. What's stopping you from doing it? I promise you, you can. But we obviously can't spend all day on incels because we have batshit crazy World War III stuff to get to. I believe it was in the Fourth and Democracy where we were talking about Venezuela and all the crazy shit going down there. We saw the USS Gerald Ford carrier group being sent down there. I talked about the Venezuela having the largest untapped oil reserve that's publicly known to the world. They've also got a lot of untapped rare earth minerals that everybody needs for chips and car batteries and cell phones and all that stuff. It seems that rare earth minerals are starting to be the new oil, and Russia's got their own. Ukraine has a lot. That's part of why Russia's going into Ukraine and everything. But right now, Russia has interests in Venezuela because they're friendly with the Maduro regime. We went over the entire thing about how Maria Corina Machado dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, and how she's trying to bait him into a regime change. Trump's trying to get a sweet deal on those rare earth minerals so he looks big on the national stage. And it also plays into that sort of New World Order agreement that they kind of have, where Putin is going to fuck with Eastern Europe and try to establish the old Russian Federation. Xi's, making his moves in Asia. And obviously Trump's trying to establish his footprint in the Americas. He's made threats to Canada. He's had land acquisition talks about Greenland, and he's buddying up with Argentina because they've got a friendly leader in place. So with Maria Corina Machado trying to get that regime change, we're seeing the carrier group moving into the Caribbean. I believe there was part of it, or maybe all of it, that docked in Trinidad and Tobago recently. But this is definitely posturing. This is definitely threatening, and it goes along with Trump doing the whole nuclear tests as well. I apologize. I worry about fucking World War III, because what else goes into that is not only does Trump want to do the whole regime change thing and have access to that oil and those minerals, Russia already has interests in those oil and minerals, and they are obviously going to seek to protect those. Heavy Russian cargo plane lands in Caracas amid U.S. Venezuela tensions. And a Russian transport aircraft of a type leaked to the country's military and former Wagner mercenary group has landed in Venezuela capital over the weekend, signaling heightened Russian interest in the Latin American country. Make it fucking stop, dude. Make it stop. Because I do not want to go into World War III. Russia is going to protect their interests in Venezuela. Trump wants to go in there and fuck them up. We've got the Wagner group going in, and it seems like corporate media isn't talking about it at all. I don't know, man. This is some scary shit, because he wants to do nuclear testing, and that signals a Cold War that could go hot with U.S. Russia tensions and interests in the region, because obviously Putin doesn't want dear leader Donnie to take over Venezuela and have that stronghold. But yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking like anybody's going to take this down a notch. And we know that once wars start, they're really easy to start, but they're incredibly difficult to stop. So keep an eye on Venezuela. I know that the corporate media is not talking about it a lot. I will put out another piece probably next week on it, a little bit of a deeper dive into the situation and the tensions that are going to come up between Russia and the United States. So that's definitely something to look out for. Another thing that we saw recently is there's something weird going on with Erika Kirk and JD Vance. I don't know what it is yet, but we have seen Erika go from Little Miss Tradwife to leather pants and Victoria's Secret looking lace, and they're getting a little bit close. You start to wonder with, I'm going to put the tinfoil hat on here for a second, but you start to wonder with Trump's health problems and everything, there looks like they're starting to line up for his successor. And you're seeing JD Vance out in the public a lot more, talking about policy and being the smiling face of the regime, the administration. And one of the big questions is, will MAGA accept him as a successor if he's married to Usha, if he's married to an Indian woman? Obviously, we see here with Erika Kirk, since Charlie died, she's taken over Turning Point USA, and she's been a lot more visible. We saw the WrestleMania vigil thing. We've seen more Turning Point rallies. I believe this one was at Ole Miss. And she's obviously going to be a big part of their movement going forward. And I just wonder, do we slowly start to see Usha go into the background? Do we see Erika Kirk start to take a more prominent role in the administration? Would MAGA accept a divorced couple with kids from different fathers as their new holy union? We don't know. But there's definitely something going on there with those two, because they're a lot more public lately, as we see, after Charlie Kirk was killed, and as Trump's health is starting to fail a little bit more. So a lot to watch out for. I appreciate you guys joining me on the midweek burn this week. I know that it's a little bit late and I was a little bit late getting this episode out, but I appreciate you guys bearing with me. Look out for the Underground newsletter coming out Friday tomorrow. And let me see what else. We've got the weekly wrap coming out every Sunday on Lincoln Square. That's something to watch out for. I know it's hard to keep up with all the interviews and the lives and the weekly shows and everything for Lincoln Square. So we came up with an idea to, include an excerpt from each conversation and the highlight shows of the week and, kind of give you guys the links and transcripts to those interviews so you can read them and catch up on things rather than having to watch a bunch of, 1-hour episodes at the end of the week. So definitely check that out, the weekly wrap on Lincoln Square. And you can also find Fourth and Democracy every Tuesday that comes out. And like I said, I'm going to do a bit of a deeper dive on the Venezuela issue and how the US and Russia relations play into that. So be on the lookout for that. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Take care, stay safe. And we'll see you soon. All right. Thanks.